Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited to speak today with Dr. Deborah Threadgill Egerton. She's an internationally respected psychotherapist, IEA Accredited Professional with distinction, certified Enneagram teacher, best-selling author, and also so many things: a coach, spiritual teacher, a consultant. She works with both individuals and organizations to help them release false historical narratives and to open their mind and hearts to a more compassionate and connected approach to life. Welcome, Dr. Deborah. I'm so happy to be here with you.
And I am equally as happy to be here with you, Shireen.
It's amazing to talk to yet another inspiring woman, and I'm so curious. I think that this would be a very interesting conversation. We're going to talk about your work and also the book that you have. And yeah, I'm just excited, and it's such an important topic as also, which I've been getting involved with more and more as well. So maybe we can start with you sharing how you came into the work and everything that you're doing today, if you have like the path of, yeah, how everything led you to where you are today.
Well, lovely. Happy to respond to that. Shireen, from my childhood, from my very, very early days, I was always drawn to help people who are marginalized in the world. And I can remember being a very little girl and recognizing some things about the way that people treat one another. And I was sensitive to that. I knew that when people spoke kindly to me or to anyone else, I felt good. But when I heard people, screaming at each other or saying mean things, it just bothered me. I mean, I felt like it disturbed my soul. And I began to try to course correct that. If I was somewhere and I heard someone saying something unkind to another person, I would sometimes go over to that person and say, "She's sorry, she didn't mean it." and, and as my path sort of, went forward, I studied psychology, and I also, in undergraduate school, I was like a broadcast journalism major. And then my master's, I went on to begin the study of psychology. And I just wanted to understand how people thought and why they acted the way that they did. And as my life evolved, I was married to an army man, and so as an army officer and a doctor, and I would end up in these different places in the world, and I found a common thread that no matter where I was in the world, there were always people who were treated as less than, or as the term that I use is othering. People who were treated as other, separate and apart from the dominant culture. And I would get right in the middle of that and try to do whatever I could to pull people back in from the margins, or to help people know that at least I loved and accepted them as they are. And that's been my path. As a Black woman living in the United States of America, my people are marginalized here and treated differently. And, we have recently seen the atrocities all over the world of what's happening. And I really want to help people who see these things and know that they're wrong wherever they are in the world to stand up and say, no, this is not okay. This is not all right. We're going to we're going to be the voices for good. We're going to be the voices that try to speak out against oppression. And I believe that when people stand up and say enough anywhere, that everywhere there should be a response. And that is why I wrote the book. And I studied the Enneagram, and the Enneagram is a beautiful unifier. So I thought, okay, let me bring these two things together and give people some tools and a way to find their gift so that they can stand up and say, no, not on my watch. We're not going to do this and be silent.
Wow, what a beautiful story and background. And it sounds like you came here to be like this beautiful healing angel for mankind or humankind, because we need people to the most almost worst thing is when people are not attuned to how other people can feel when we act in certain ways. That's the real disease. It's when we're cut off and separated, and that's when this separation can really lead to what you're saying, that a group of people or a gender or anything, or any type of grouping can feel that they are more than another, or you can feel above someone else, but that's only the ego that is constructing all of these things. When we have, I feel like what you're doing is also a higher spiritual path. It's like social justice and changing a system and all of that, but at the same time, if we are doing spiritual work and we understand what it means to be in connection with the divine in any way, it's also only love, and then that love has to come out to everywhere. It's everyone has a divinity or something to be loved. And I think that that's really important. And like you said, what's happening, we're in a major shift where we need to take action to really, we cannot only talk about it anymore. We need to and I feel that in all generations now that a shift is happening, and people have had enough of being marginalized. And it is hard to completely fully understand it if you're always a majority group or you're not part of the group which is suppressed.
Right.
And and the intersectionality, it's something that I really looked into in my own studies of global health and rights, that we don't understand the layers. We have to understand that. We have to also understand ourselves to be able to understand what's happening and to see it. So it's really important what all of the work that you're and how you were called to it since you were a child. You understood it, so you're already very conscious and aware of this.
Well, you said something that is so very important, and it's something that people do not remember. But we are all connected to the divine. And because we are all connected through the divine, we also are connected to one another. And we just have to remember that we are all connected. So when a dominant group culture treats any people in a way where they marginalize or ostracize or treat us as less than, it's not just the people who this is happening to who are actually recipients of sort of the negative outcomes, We may not always see what the negative outcome is for the dominant group, but if you are oppressing any people, there is something that you are doing to your own soul. It's not just that we suffer, and we do, but it is also the erosion of the character, of the nature of the human beings, of the goodness that is inside of them that they are not expressing by actually acting as if there are certain people who are worthy of love and respect and others are not. And the only antidote for this is love. Only thing that can, I love many of the quotes of Dr. Martin Luther King, but he talks about only how love and light can drive out darkness. And for so many people who come from what would be a dominant culture and a dominant norm, if they are not looking at that, then actually they're harming themselves. They're harming their children. They are harming future generations who will actually sort of the core of their character becomes less than it was intended to be. Because if you feed mean-spiritedness, if you feed the things that would allow you to stand back and watch other human beings being harmed, because we were all created by one creator, the expectation is that we would defend and protect and love one another, not that we would marginalize and harm and treat each other differently.
That's so true. And there is a part of, so I love and study the history of religion and religious studies at the moment, and it's so interesting that something, if we look historically, because also if we look at people who have been oppressed, they can be big groups, like for example women versus, that's I mean that's half the population, but also then indigenous people, different, like everything that's happened for the past 4,000 years. It's a long process actually up until where we are today. So it's not something people sometimes tend to focus on, just like the recent history. This is so deep that it's very hard to understand how that shift happened, because it's very clear it started becoming, and we can't know for sure because everything is not in like written in history, but we can see that something shifted in how faith and worship and that whole focus, how that shifted, and how women had less like became less centralized in society. And what happens then, because if there is a major imbalance happening and these traits of the feminine is being suppressed, then all of a sudden every society or people also that express that will also automatically become, I was just studying recently that it was urbanization that led to also more suppression, for example. It was a shift in how they viewed nature, for example, and these practices, and which a lot of the wisdom holding was in both, but maybe women have held also a certain wisdom tradition and this connection. So when we also think about as divine beings and having how important the spiritual practice is, and we look out in society how little of that there is actually.
Correct.
Right.
That is so true. I go all the way back, and like you, I have been so curious about how long this has gone on and who are the groups of people, the large groups and the small groups who have been, whose voices have been silenced. And we know as women that very often our voices are silenced. And, growing up in a culture where I was raised as a Christian, I, of course, look at the voice of Mary Magdalene and how this is a voice that was silenced. Her writings were not included, and yet her writings are so powerful, so meaningful, and offer us so much hope and help. And yet, we as women so often end up in the position of we have the knowledge, we have the blessing to go forward, to speak truth, and yet there can sometimes be a fear that our truth might not be aligned with power the way that power wants for things to evolve. And so we find ourselves pushed away and not being allowed to speak out. But, when we look at what's happening to the planet, when we look at our children that are growing up, the future generations, it is the heart and the soul and the spirit of a nurturer, of a mother, and, we worry and we take care of Mother Earth and think about Mother Nature, and we think about being mothers to all of the children throughout the world. It is that divine spiritual energy that has to be released and allowed to speak. And if that doesn't happen, then things are out of balance now. And we have to do whatever we can to bring the spiritual energy of the feminine forward. And as we know, that doesn't just exist in women. That energy is, it's a universal energy, but it's one that we really have to bring forward as this shift is happening right
now. That's so true, and I love it's part of my very deep practice with the mother that people also don't understand that it doesn't have, like, for me the divine is of course genderless, but for me, even now when I went, so I'm not brought up Christian at all, but I love going and living in Sweden, and like a secularized country, but we do have old churches. I went to this, it was by coincidence a mass, and it was actually a mass on this Sunday for the Annunciation. Correct. Right?
Yes.
And it was so refreshing to hear the story of her, because I'm also very devoted to Mother Mary, because we have forgotten the power that she must have had to to do that work that she did. And as you said, Mary Magdalene also, so for me, like, they were like a trinity, like the mother and then this holy couple. And I was listening to this amazing, maybe you know her, Amina Wadud. She's the lady imam. She's actually from the Muslim tradition, and she has also normalized that this concept of God that we have in the Abrahamic traditions. We can say she if we want to, because that's how we also shift this consciousness that this it can be loving. It doesn't have to be patriarchal. It doesn't have to be. It can be a healing masculine energy as well. But like you say, it's all within us, because it's not about. I studied religious psychology, and it's normal to want to have a concept of something abstract, right? And for me, it is the mother, like you said, it's a nurturing mother, and that's what the world needs now, because we have been longing for it, and there's this great imbalance, and everything that we're trying. Why is this? This not just feminism as we said, the structure, we need to change so many systems, but also this beyond that, the consciousness of how important it is to have that balance, and that we cannot be equal at all if don't have any type of gender equality, or we don't recognize what the worst thing I see in the world is the non-recognition of what has the colonialism and the patriarchal systems who are still invaded, who are still there, and um, have not acknowledged what they've done. Because again, if this big group, or it's maybe not even a big group, it can be a small group that has the hold of a lot, if they are not even recognizing, then even if they're not deliberately part of it, you're part of that. There is no recognition or no action around it. So I'm really interested also. This is really, really interesting because I'm very passionate about this, but I would also love to know how maybe people don't know the Enneagram, by the way, and how you applied it, because I would love to know myself, how did your work lead you into that, and then working it into your book as well?
Well, Shireen, it is, I believe that for those of us who want to try to help to create this shift that will give us more balance, that we have to be aware of what gifts we might possess. We were all created uniquely and divinely with certain gifts that, when we are willing to unfold the layers and really look at who we are and what gift we were given to bring out into the world, that is when we can step into our full power and we can make the contribution that we are intended to make. And what the Enneagram does, it's 9 personality archetypes. And what it shows you is that with each of the 9 different points, there is a certain energy that comes from each of those points. We have all 9 of those energies within us, but one of them leads. One of them is your dominant energy. And at each of the 9 points, when you do your inner work, and sometimes people say, what the heck is inner work? Well, the Enneagram is something that helps you learn how to do the inner work, because it helps you to look at why you do what you do. Not so much what you do, but why are you doing it? What is the motivation behind what you're doing? What is that basic thing that you are trying to sort of satisfy? What is it that you're really very afraid of, the thing that you never want to have happen? And also, it helps you to look at what your ego is up to. Once you can sort of find the ego's sort of functioning system and the way that the egoic agenda is in control, then you take back your own power. And I believe that the divine steps in at that moment once you really see yourself, and helps you to actually step into goodness, and helps to strengthen you to do what you're intended to do. The ego, in many ways, is trying to protect us. We have to have an ego to even function in the world, but it's almost like it outlives its usefulness, or begins to outsmart itself, and doesn't guide us in the direction of what I call self-fullness, where we come into full self-recognition of who we are and what we are intended to do. If we don't look at what our ego is up to, then we are serving something that is not meant to make the decisions or to make the judgment calls that need to be made, because then the decisions and the judgment calls that we make will be more selfish. It becomes all about me. So each of these nine archetypes help you to see yourself the way that you show up in the world. And it's like picking up a mirror, and for us ladies, it might be picking up a mirror before we put any makeup on. Like, oh my gosh, is that how I look? Wait a minute. Let me get my ego lipstick out and put that on, make myself look a little better. But I weave that into my book because doing the type of work that we want to do is not sustainable unless we are really solid in our core. Unless we keep ourselves connected and remember always that we are connected to divine energy, and actually having a spiritual practice or a practice that works well, that helps you to remember who you are and helps you to move through the world with loving kindness. I mean, we can stand against really strong forces that are intended to push us back or to silence us. We can stand against that when we can stand grounded in the reality of who we are and whose we are. How we were created, and we know what we were created to do. And so that's the deep inner work that gives you the power and the strength and the heart. I also talk about how we have 3 centers of intelligence, not just this, not just the head, but we have the wisdom of the body, and in the gut center, that what some people call women's intuition, but it's more powerful than that. It's a knowing without knowing. It is a response that the body gives us that lets us know whether to turn right or to turn left, where we can sense danger, where we can sense the goodness in someone. And then we have the wisdom of our hearts, and that we can see in the world is sadly lacking, because when your gut or your body responds to something and you have a powerful feeling about something, when you filter that through the feelings of your heart, then your heart has a pure energy that helps you to understand, is this for the sake of goodness? And then the wisdom of our heads, it often gives us the way, the plan, the method, the how we will actually be able to make something happen. So head, heart, gut, all of these things, we need to understand them so that we can then take our bodies out into the world and do what we need to do to make things better now and better for the generations to come.
That's so beautiful and powerful to really also think about these different centers, because as we have been very in a patriarchal system, it's very head-based, and in Chinese medicine, the heart is also connected to the womb space, which we all have, both women and men, and that's the intelligence, and even the heart. Sure, you can, in yogic traditions, through the practice of knowledge, attain this divine state or like this divine understanding, but through bhakti or devotion, your heart opens up. That's like they say, that's the direct way to the divine. And
Yes.
in that space, I mean, I feel like that's the space that ties everything together, because this, we can also have this instinct and gut feeling that sometimes is also, I don't know, it can be affected by the ego sometimes, and our thoughts can, but I feel like the heart is like,
It's
is it
innocent.
invincible?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a purity and an innocence of the heart that does not let us, when we really listen to the wisdom of the heart, it will actually bring us back to a place of wholeness. It will actually help us, it's like your heart opens and it allows goodness to come out and to come in. And just as the heart beats, it beats to keep you alive and to make sure that every part of your body can function, because it is sending blood and it is sending love throughout your body. And so to ignore the heart and the purity of it and the innocence of it, this to me is how we return to being like children, to have that innocence and to have that awareness of what is good and what feels helpful and what heals what is hurting. And I think that that's all right here in our heart center. And we ignore it. We bypass the heart. And for the good of the entire world, we have to stop bypassing the heart. How can you look at things that are happening anywhere in the world and see atrocities, see women silenced, see power, just sort of people grabbing for power, see people still sort of laboring under the stress of oppression? And how can your heart not break? And that's a question that I ask all the time. How can that not break your heart? It can also make your heart stronger. Because when you see it, you allow your heart to open and you enter into the space. As I write in the book, no justice, no peace, but KNOW, no justice and no peace. When you enter out into any situation where people are hurting, remembering to align your three centers of intelligence, but being particularly aware of the messages of your heart, then you will find your gift and you will bring either the gift of being a defender, a healer, or a bridge builder into the world. And that's what we need people to do.
Yeah, that's powerful and so true. And I have so many more things to ask you and to talk about. I feel like the time has went so fast, and I know that you have to be somewhere else, but I'm sure that we can continue our conversation at a different point, because I would love to get into more of your work and the book. But just to share with the listeners, what are you sharing from your heart right now? You have the book. Where can people find it, and the other work that you're doing and what you're offering right now?
So the easiest way to see where I am and what I'm offering is by going to my website. And I'm easy to find if you can remember how to spell my name. So it's DEBORAH, Deborah Egerton, EGERTON.com. That's my website. And once you go to the website, you'll see there are many, many events that I'm scheduled, and most of them are virtual. I'm doing a class for One Spirit right now on the Enneagram and social justice. And that is actually starting next week, next Tuesday, but you can still sign up on my website. I'll be speaking at Hay House, I Can Do It, at the conference. Robert Holden and I will be teaching the Enneagram together at the conference, and that's in May. I believe it's May 19 to 21, and that's in Tampa, Florida, but I think people can also attend virtually. And I'm the keynote speaker for the Enneagram, International Enneagram Association conference. It's global, so people will be coming from all around the world, and you can attend virtually, or you can actually come to San Francisco. So I'll be opening up the conference with a keynote speech, and then later doing a panel with Robert on activism and the Enneagram. So there's lots of things out there. I teach a class where I bring together a cohort of people, and we work together for 3 months, and we meet every week, and just helping people to understand how to navigate and how to really be able to stand in a position of love and to make their contribution in the areas of I call it idea work, inclusion, diversity, equity, and anti-racism. So there are lots of things that I'm involved in, and I don't consider it work. It's just why I'm here.
That's the best. That's the best type of dedication and devotion. And so I'm gonna definitely share all your links in the show notes, so everyone can, and if anyone has any questions, they can connect with me if they want to find you. So I'm sure there will be many people interested, and this is so amazing. I can't wait to check all of that out and to connect very soon again. And thank you so much for your time and your beautiful sharings today.
Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to talking again.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.